Welcome to the Practice Squad Podcast, episode 19. I am Jon. I'm joined by my co host, Mark. And we just got through college football championship weekend. We just got through another crazy NFL week. There's a lot to discuss. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Ready to go over, especially the college football playoff. Definitely a lot to talk about there. Doesn't get enough conversation, I feel like, this time of year from us, and it deserves more. And then obviously the NFL every week. You can't write it any better than it happens every single week. They find new drama, new storylines, new injuries, new upsets. It just seems like every week there's a different team to beat. And you learn more every single week you watch with this NFL football, man. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Also, not to dunk on your hair because I think it looks pretty good, but surprised to see it today. No hat today, huh?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about wearing a different hat every episode, and
Did you run out of
really,
hats?
I didn't run out of hats. It just felt like the hair's the right length. Um, it's time to show the world.
It's in that window, right?
It's in the win. It's in the
Yeah.
good window, and that'll last about 3 days. I'm like, might as well show it.
Right. And now college football teams in their window right now, the playoff picture got shaken up pretty dramatically during this championship weekend. Previously, Ohio State was not in the playoffs. With USC's loss, they are now in the playoffs. People were kind of hoping for an instant Michigan Ohio State rematch, but that's not how the brackets worked out. Instead, Michigan's playing TCU, Ohio State's playing Georgia, but there's still an exciting possibility that those two teams might see each other in the national championship. So, what's all your thoughts on that? Do you feel like the top four teams are truly the top four teams? Do you feel like it's 1 through 4 structured the right way? And how is this going to change 2 years from now when 12 teams make it, right?
Well, there's a lot to digest here with this because I do think that the proper four teams got in. Unfortunately, you'll never know that for sure because Alabama, I do feel like, would beat TCU and probably would beat Ohio State. But in terms of what the ruling is and how the committee plans their four teams, they did get it right based on how it's set up right now. I like actually that they put Ohio at 4 because I feel like you can't punish TCU for playing hard and competing in a conference championship game. Ohio was sitting at home watching, you know. Um, do I think Ohio State's better? Probably. But again, I think you don't punish a team that earned a right to try to compete and came up just short. I love TCU's quarterback, Max Duggan. I think he should probably be the Heisman leader after him or Caleb Williams. Um, but to kind of go off of, I think Georgia's obviously the top dog. Michigan's always the second seed. But yeah, there's a lot of debate that could happen with the 3 and 4. I think they got it right, but unfortunately, because of the 4 team playoff rule, we will never know for sure. And I've looked at, Jon, if the 12 team was in play this year, it would be very exciting to see kind of
And
how it.
that's what I was gonna say, right? Because there's a lot of cool stories that happened through college this year, right? With Tennessee being as good as they were, first time in a long time they were that good, right? Alabama losing those 2 games that they lost, LSU being a really competitive, solid team. Same with USC. So it does stink that all these teams are no longer in the playoffs because I legitimately think that if any of those 4 teams I just mentioned had actually made it, that they'd probably, be pretty competitive and, would be likely to win a game against whoever they might be matched up against on the other side. So
There's sneaky
um,
teams too, Jon, like the Utah and Kansas State who won their conferences. Like those are teams that they've gotten better all year, right? They had some losses early on, but they are kind of reaching their point of like we really can compete, and that's how great teams are. They get better as the year goes on, and unfortunately, some of those teams that start to peak right around championship time don't get a chance to go and play for the biggest championship of them all, and it's just a shame. But when you look at the matchups of the 4 teams that did get in, I said it a few times in the previous weeks. Ohio State matches up with Georgia the best of any team in the country. It's just a simple fact, right? And you look at Michigan and TCU, I think would get blown out by Georgia because they can't compete with the talent, and they don't have the ability to do what Georgia doesn't want to do. Georgia wants to stuff the run, and they want to run the ball down your throat and hit a few play actions and just be better than you by being better than you. Ohio State has guys on the outside and a quarterback that can cause some issues, right? Because now you're putting it in the air. And Georgia, usually can compete with most teams doing that. But Ohio State has the best receiving core in America. They have arguably the best quarterback in America. And obviously, they're hungry to prove the world wrong. They have a bad taste in their mouth following the Michigan loss. And I mean, that's a tough matchup for Georgia in terms of who they wanted to see. It probably wasn't Ohio State,
Yeah, and
being
all you
honest.
can ask for as Ohio State is an opportunity, right?
They
So,
got one.
uh,
And there's what's your thought as a Michigan fan, John? Because I was thinking about it before. Right now, Michigan fans are probably feeling the best they've felt in 20, 25 years, right? I mean, they back-to-back Big Ten championships,
best of my
college football,
lifetime.
yeah,
Yeah.
college football playoff appearance last year. You've beaten Ohio State twice in dominant fashion, and there's really nothing better to be happy about. I mean, you play TCU, who you're going to be heavily favored to beat and have an opportunity to go play in the national championship. What are your thoughts? Did you want to see Ohio State? Would you rather kind of have the chance to see them in the championship game, even though that's not super likely? Or, it's kind of like doubling down. I mean, you beat Ohio State a third time in the college football playoff. You basically get Ryan Day fired. You basically set them back 10 years in recruiting. But you also have the risk of, if Ohio State beats you, it basically undoes everything that you've done the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a Michigan fan, like there's nothing more than you can ask for than the game turning into the game again.
Yeah.
Like at an even bigger stage with the stakes even higher, right? It's like incredibly cool. And honestly, you got to be unbiased that Ohio State is a team that's worthy of being in the playoffs, right? Their only loss is to Michigan, who you can make a strong argument for Michigan being the best team in the country rather than Georgia, right? So just, based off of the math, based off of, how the wins and losses worked out for every team, they should definitely be in the playoffs. I think playing them in the Natty, even though there's only a possibility that happens, is way cooler than playing them in the first round of the
Can you
playoffs.
imagine the viewership of Michigan, Ohio State?
It would be absolutely insane. I mean, and like the SEC, I guess, has gotten used to kind of having these kind of matchups in the national championship. Go them, whatever. But this hasn't been a situation in the Big Ten where there's two teams that could legitimately make it to the national championship. So yeah, it's pretty cool. That game is going to be absolutely electric. If it does happen, and even if it doesn't, just really excited as a Michigan fan to be where we're at.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your statement that Day would get fired and it would set Michigan back is, maybe a little bit exaggerated. Because at the same time, even if we, lose the national championship this year, assuming we beat TCU, which I think our odds are pretty good, like, I mean, I still feel really good about where Michigan football is at under Harbaugh for the foreseeable future. And I think that we can consistently beat Ohio State for the foreseeable future, right? Where it's not, this previous decade where Ohio State won, 10 out of the past, 12 matchups or whatever it was. So
yeah, you feel it turning. My two early predictions too, John, with this playoff, as I look at it, I think Georgia's significantly better than all the other three teams. I do. I like Michigan. But they're young, man. They're young. They lost Corum. Their defense is pretty young as well. And Georgia is just like physically so much better than all these other teams, and they have more experience, and they've just done it, right? I know they're not as good as they were last year, and they lost a lot of key pieces, but they looked really good against LSU in the SEC championship game. They've had a couple off weeks, but Georgia's going to come to play in a playoff game, and it just feels like we're going to see some, like, I don't know if Ohio State doesn't absolutely dominate on the outside and throw the ball all over them, it's going to be a blowout. And then the championship game, whether it's TCU or Michigan, I think could very easily be a blowout as well.
So yeah, and actually this opens up the door for me to, push back on a few things. Mainly Corum not getting a Heisman nod because of his injury, and Bennett getting a Heisman nod pissed me off. So stupid. I mean, Corum had a season that is comparable to guys like Derrick Henry, who obviously Heisman
Won
winner
the Heisman.
for his season as a running back, and Corum has damn near the same statistics with one less game than Henry got, and did not get a Heisman nod.
The Heisman is a joke right now. It is as bad as it's ever been. I don't understand. You can argue there's a lot of guys that should have been in there, right? I mean, Max Duggan should for sure be in there, and I think Caleb Williams should for sure be in there. But
they're not, and Bennett is when he's literally he has the talent.
He's just on the best team. He's just on the best team.
You can't there's only a certain degree to which you can separate the talent that you're playing with and your own personal stats. Like Corum is playing against probably the best offensive line in college football. That's why his stats are that good. But at the same time, it's like you're the quarterback. Of course, you're going to be getting good looks when the cast around you is that ridiculously talented. So
it has become just essentially the best player on the best team award. It's the Heisman is supposed to be that unique trophy of where, bar none, it's the best football player in the country. Position doesn't matter. I mean, they've basically just made a best quarterback on the best team. And that's not what the trophy should be, right? That's not what the trophy should be. There's been plenty of years, where like Hutchinson was rare to see a guy even in the finals, but he probably deserved to win it. I mean, arguably.
Yeah, I mean, based off of the season that he had, I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't. And so it's
there's been so many years where there's defensive guys that get left off the list, running backs, receivers that get left off the list. It's really sad to see because that's not what the trophy should be. I think that the biggest thing when you're looking at the Heisman should be obviously, the season that you have and what you do with what you are, right? A running back doing what Blake Corum did is far more impressive than what Stetson Bennett has done this year for Georgia.
Especially considering like Corum's stature, right? Like he's an undersized running back.
You have to take everything into account, right? Where has Michigan been? Where has Georgia been? How much does Corum mean to his team in comparison to Bennett? Right. What kind of Heisman moments do these guys have? Right. I think Heisman moments are really important. Like CJ Stroud does not have a Heisman moment. Caleb Williams has had his Heisman moment against Notre Dame. And, you look at recent Heisman winners, they all kind of have a Heisman. The memorable Heisman winners all have their Heisman moment. Right. Totally. I mean, you think of like the Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Baker Mayfield, like those guys all had moments where it's like, yep, that's the guy. That's the guy who's going to get my vote. This year, I mean, I would say Max Duggan probably has the most Heisman moments, even though he fell in the conference championship with amazing effort at the end. Him or Caleb Williams. But again, Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, even though he got hurt, he had 2 huge wins against top 5 teams, performed very well in the biggest moments, the biggest stages, and had ridiculous statistics, right? So there's an argument for a lot of guys that aren't even in the Heisman conversation. And you look back at just last year, Kenneth Walker, right? I know you're not going to like this as a Michigan fan, but Kenneth Walker,
gotta give credit where it's due.
I'll say this: he was far more deserving of getting into New York than Blake Corum is this year. I mean, Kenneth Walker should have won the Heisman Trophy last year.
But and I think you see how exposed Michigan State is without his talent.
Oh my God,
too. Like, I mean, the dude was literally putting the team on his back, probably more than we were even giving him credit for last season. So,
oh my God,
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And look, I get that it's not easy to award a single trophy to a single college football player out of the thousands that you could potentially choose from, but like you got to put in a little bit more effort than 4 quarterbacks on the 4 best teams. It's incredibly lazy in my opinion, and yeah, I mean, Bennett's the one that pissed me off the most, especially, compared to guys like Williams, who that dude is a generational quarterback talent, bar none. The things I've seen that dude do in the pocket, I mean, his athleticism, his ball throwing skills, I think he's going to go very high in the draft. So I'm excited to see where he goes with that. And the fact that he's not getting a look is crazy. So
it's sad.
Anyways, that is 14 minutes of college football. So pretty good start there. Pretty good conversation there. We can move on to recapping the NFL games. So I went 10-4-1 this week. Mark went 8-6-1. And I think for, a lot of the games that I made fun of him for. So I'm excited to, kind of dig into that. So starting off with Bills Patriots, what's really cool is I watched the majority of this game, in DC, watching my one friend play a little local show with his band. It was the first time I was able to come out and go to a local DC show since I'm relatively new to the area. And I walk into this spot and there are just TVs everywhere around the stage playing the Bills Pats game. So I'm enjoying some music and I'm sitting there watching this game. And, my main impression is that like the Bill Belichick, which we've said this before, like the Bill Belichick style of football, right, is like kind of old era, like, old mentality versus the Bills, who I think are just completely like new age in the way that they play football, the way they approach football, the talent they sign, things like that. And for the second year in a row now, you're kind of seeing exactly how that pans out in reality, right? Where the Bills were just electric this entire game. And honestly, I think, 2 touchdowns isn't enough to show how dominant the Bills were throughout this entire game. They were just clearly the better team, both offensively and defensively, start to finish, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. They, and it's worth noting with the Kansas City loss, the playoffs currently as it would stand, Buffalo is the 1 seed, right? So the playoffs in the AFC will go through Buffalo. That's a huge, huge thing, because whoever gets that top seed, we mentioned it before, between Kansas City and Buffalo, like that home field advantage in Buffalo is arguably the best home field advantage in football, especially in the playoffs, dude. I mean, you're talking snow, you're talking, crazy ass fans. That is going to cause some issues for some of these teams in the AFC that want to, only throw the ball, including the Bills, right? I mean, the Bills in just snow, it's not exactly what they want to do, but it's interesting to see, right? That's definitely a big thing to kind of watch and keep an eye on moving forward. That loss to the Bengals for Kansas City really hurts and is a huge, and we talk about back when it happened, when the Bills beat Kansas City, why that head-to-head matchup is so big, because they have that tiebreaker, right? The head-to-head tiebreaker. So it is huge, huge, huge. And moving forward, it's going to be exciting to see, because those are 2 heavy Super Bowl favorites, right? Whoever comes out of that AFC.
If the Bills do win the AFC, how many folding tables are going to be destroyed in the playoff run?
It's going to be unbelievable. And if the Bills go to the Super Bowl, right, and they play in the Super Bowl stage, just think about how wild those fans are going to be. I mean, they went 0-4 in Super Bowls in 4 straight years, right? I mean, let's not forget that happened. They are craving one. They're craving one. They feel like all year they have felt like this is their year. I know they've been a little slow going in the last few weeks, and there's been some doubt. But when you have Josh Allen and when he starts to get better, right, when he's feeling more healthy and they're clicking, I'm telling you, that's my team to win it. And they're a hard team to beat, especially at home.
Yeah, I mean, the way that things are shaking out in the AFC, I feel like there's a lot of separation between the Bills and KC and everybody else, just kind of like there was.
Let's put Cincinnati in that conversation too.
We'll get there, trust me,
Yeah.
but I just think like, and KC usually kind of goes through a midseason slump. That didn't really happen so much this season, I feel like. And I mean, they, even in this Bengals loss, they just look like a really, really rock solid team, and they're going to be super scary in the playoffs as well. So moving on to Steelers Falcons, I did not watch this game. The only thing I got from this game was that fan trying to talk to Mike Tomlin in the tunnel, and he goes, "I'm effing working," and then just walks to go talk to his locker room. I don't know if you have any opinions on that. I didn't think it was rude. I thought it was rude that the fan, broke into wherever he was in there to approach Tomlin while he was going to go address his team after a win. I thought that was rude, but I thought it was really funny.
Fans are going to be fans, but I mean, at some point, he's probably had, hundreds of people try to get his attention, filming him, asking him questions. Like, you just got to keep walking and just not say anything, if you're Mike Tomlin, truly. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Similar to Belichick, John, I think we need to give Tomlin some credit. This is a Steelers team that no one expected to do anything. I mean, they've won a few games here in a row, and they've done it with a few different quarterbacks. And Mike Tomlin, I mean, it shows the importance of the coach you have in the NFL and what kind of difference that makes.
He always figures it out.
They're not good. I mean, this is a terrible team, and they're playing in a hard division, and they are winning games, and you have to give them some credit. Mike Tomlin, man, and he's up there with some of the best coaches that we see in this league, and he's done it for a long time. And a lot of people question, what's he going to do without Big Ben, right? He's had Big Ben his whole career. Right. Is he going to drop off? Was he leaning on Big Ben? Kind of similar to hey, has Belichick been leaning on Brady all these years? It shows. Mike Tomlin is a very good football coach, and he's able to win with even Kenny Pickett and some of these younger guys that they have that are probably not ready to be playing in the moments that they are, but they're
And
winning some football games.
I think Pickett has a hell of a lot of potential too. And I
Yeah,
think
he's young.
it's primarily just like, I mean, he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's got the weird two glove thing going on. But what I just noticed from him is his ability to like use his head like an NFL quarterback. Like he is making the right reads, he's making smart decisions. I know he had a bunch of picks in his first two starts, probably as he's kind of getting those nerves out of the way. And ever since then, he's really been solid. So, bright future ahead of them. And it's crazy that Tomlin has been able to put together this season to be as successful as it is with the guys he's got on his roster for sure.
It's very impressive.
All right, moving on to the I told you so game. And for a second there,
it was so close.
For a second there, I thought, oh shit, Mark's gonna finally get one after picking the Broncos week after week after week after week for whatever reason. And sure enough, Baltimore clutches it out with their second string quarterback, and I immediately started talking shit. I'm sad that you don't have the Danger Witch in front of you. You should be munching on that thing right now for how much you love Russell Wilson and believe in his ability to score touchdowns in games where at the time no touchdowns had been scored. But no, he couldn't do that for you.
I don't believe in Russell Wilson to score touchdowns. I just believe that the Broncos can win a football game with how good their defense is against a bad Ravens team.
And you believed wrong.
Yeah, but I was damn close. Close. And can we just talk about how bad Lamar Jackson is? Because
I don't think you can even make a proper assessment with this game. He was out, the beginning of the second quarter, end of the first?
Yeah, but he didn't look good in the beginning of the game. He hasn't looked good for several weeks. I mean, I don't know if you pay the guy. Have you seen the rumored that he's been liking some of the tweets about the Lions?
I have. The speculation on that is that he was liking the tweets because the Lions blew out the Jaguars, who beat them last week, not because he's a fan of the Lions. I don't know how I lean in either direction with that argument. I will say this. I would pay Lamar like a 1-year test pilot contract and see how he does and know that he's going to come here and compete with Jared Goff for that starting spot for that year. I would not pay him a multiple $100 million long-term deal at all.
Here's the problem, John. He won't do that. He's gonna sign someone because someone will sign him on that max deal. I very much hope that it is not the Detroit Lions.
I think it's going to be the Panthers. Honestly, I think they're tired of this shit and they're going to swing big on him. And it's probably not going to be, it's not going to pan out the way they want it to, because I think while he's a great early season quarterback, all of his weaknesses tend to show the longer you go into the season.
I don't know. I think the Ravens will actually end up still paying him. I think that Harbaugh is very loyal to him. I think that they believe in him. I don't know if there's a lot of other teams that do, especially with how this has gone. I really, really hope, though, that he does not go to the Detroit Lions on a big contract, because that would be a huge setback with what's been happening in Detroit.
With how carefully crafted the drafting decisions we've made have been, with how well we've managed our salary cap, with how well we've even managed, absorbing Goff's contract and also getting the best out of him as a quarterback. I mean, he's been, playing probably the best football of his career with the Lions this year.
Oh, yeah.
And, I just think that would be a really short-sighted, silly decision that probably wouldn't even pan out for that year. But, I mean, we have the Rams and the Broncos as case studies on why that's just generally a bad idea this year, right? I mean, the Rams did get their Super Bowl, but I mean, look at the Super Bowl hangover that has come with just paying all of these big name players hundreds of millions of dollars and not really having a whole lot of supporting cast to go with it, not a whole lot of team cohesiveness, and they're paying the price for that. And Broncos is a different story, right? You threw all your eggs in one basket on one guy, paid him a massive contract before he even, was throwing balls in your stadium, and sure enough, that hasn't panned out either. So I think Brad Holmes is way too smart to bite on a large contract.
I hope you're right. So, I hope you're right.
Like I said, if it's a 1-year deal and you want to take a swing on it, see how it works out, I'm for that. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. He's an incredible talent. So, and we have an insane offense that would be even scarier if your quarterback's a legitimate running threat on top of our already really dominant run game. I think that's interesting, but not a long-term situation. Moving on to Green Bay Bears. Per usual, Green Bay owns Chicago.
Even in their worst year,
there's some certainties in life,
still
right?
own
Death,
Chicago.
taxes, Aaron Rodgers dunking on Chicago in their own stadium.
That's 8
but
straight. You know that?
8 straight.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And also, it was a closer game to start, but Green Bay definitely, settled down their nerves a little bit and was able to
Justin
win.
Fields was impressive again. Very impressive again.
Yeah. What's his injury situation? Is there
he played the whole game and he looked really, really good. He had another 50-yard plus touchdown, which he leads the league in, which is just freakish.
That's crazy.
And he threw the ball pretty well. I mean, they had the lead in this game for most of it. And then Aaron Rodgers did what he does to Chicago. It just seems like no matter how bad the Packers are down, if Aaron Rodgers is playing at Chicago, they're going to find a way to take them and beat them. So, but yeah, give some credit to Justin Fields. He looked good. He's definitely got a promising future in Chicago. And the Packers got to win.
Yep. And then probably, the game both of us are very excited to talk about. Not only the Lions win against the Jaguars, the Lions dominant all three phases.
End, yeah.
Blowout win. Probably the only time as a Lions fan in recent memory that we entered the fourth quarter with a lead. And I was like, nah, the rest of these 15 minutes can burn off. We're good. I'm not even worried about it. I don't think we'll choke this away. I don't think we'll find a way to lose this game. It is 100% our game. And, Lions are 5-7 now, which means that I am 1 game away from not having to take the ACT. And Mark is 2 games away from having to take the ACT. So I think for the first time as of this week, Mark's officially nervous about his ACT odds, which is hilarious considering at one point I thought there was absolutely no possibility I would even be in a position to not have to take it just a few weeks ago. And then the Lions just turned the corner. So yeah, I love the way the defense has been playing. I mean, I think we need to talk about Houston a little bit and the impact that he has had on the third down pass rush. And the linebacker play was incredible between Rodriguez and Anzalone, I think is how you say his name. I don't even know.
Anzalone.
Anzalone. And having 2 reliable cornerbacks in Jacobs and Okudah has just also made a world of difference for that secondary as well. So that was my takeaway is, defense did their job and offense was firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, the defense has come a long way. It's come a long way from what it was. I'll say this being as dominant as it was, the Detroit Lions looked like a playoff contending football team the entire game. There wasn't just moments. There wasn't just a quarter or a drive. It was the entire game. Their offense scored on damn near every single possession that they had the ball.
They didn't punt, and it was nothing but touchdowns and field goals every drive except the victory formation drive.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. You don't see that happen very often in the NFL. The Jaguars aren't a bad football team either. I mean, they just beat the Ravens the previous week. The Lions doing this in the fashion that they did it is scary. It's scary for teams that have Detroit on their schedule still. It's scary for the rest. If the Detroit Lions are able to continue to stack these wins and somehow sneak their way into a playoff berth, it's not a team I'd want to see. Can you believe that I'm saying that right now? Me.
You 5 weeks ago, I would have never imagined hearing this sentence come out of your mouth. 100%.
Say it, so I have to give the credit where it's due. They have figured out their coaching issues. The play calling has never really been the problem. That's been great all season, and that continues to get better.
Yep.
Their defense is creating turnovers, finding ways to get off the field, and their offense is doing anything they want. And dude, how they're scheming their plays on offense is so exciting to watch. They run the ball well, which is the first step in having the offense that they have. But their ability to use play action, their ability to run the ball to different guys, the pass combinations that they are calling and executing. I mean, they have guys wide open every single time, and they're executing. And Goff just seems to be making the right throw almost every single time. St. Brown's been really, really good. Shark's starting to come out of the scene. I mean, you saw Jameson Williams get some action. You can see that they're just waiting to erupt, man. on offense. Like you're just kind of seeing what they can be, and they're barely even using Swift, who's I think a top 5 running back in the league. If they actually use him like an RB1, I mean, for some reason they give Williams like more carries than him. I don't know why.
I think it's Swift's injury inconsistency, and that has made him more hesitant in the way that he runs. That because if you notice Swift, which I get that the running back styles are very different between him and Williams, but Swift is very dancy, and a lot of the time it's like, dude, just like dive ahead for 2 freaking yards, try to plow through somebody and get the first down. And instead, Swift will sit there and try to dance a little bit and he'll get tackled for no gain. Williams, on the other hand, just like suicide bombs every single play, like his body and his life doesn't matter and will just truck through anybody that's in front of him. And I think when your run game is already as dominant as it is and your passing game is as reliable as it is, I mean, what Goff had 76, 77% completion percentage this game, which is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Right? When you're that consistent and reliable, why not go with the guy who you know for a fact is going to get you just the chunk of yards that you need in order to keep them honest with the run game, rather than the guy who, yes, has more potential, is more dynamic, is faster, but hasn't been consistent throughout the season. And to me, like, it almost feels like you should draft a running back in the second round as an insurance policy this coming draft and decline Swift's 5th-year option if he fails to perform this next season. That's how I feel about it personally. If I was Brad Holmes, that's how I'd be thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't know about drafting a running back that high. I mean, especially with the offensive line you have, you can pretty much put anyone back there. I mean, even Justin Jackson is producing when he's in the game. I mean, you're going to be able to run the ball with just about anybody that you can find in the league. But Swift is a dynamic player, man. He needs to be on the field more. It makes your offense that much better. His ability to catch the ball in the backfield is upwards of the best with any running back in the league. And then his after the catch ability and space is dangerous. His route running ability is dangerous. But he also does he does run the ball harder than I think you're giving him credit for. Obviously not as much as Williams. Williams runs super hard, but Swift is not afraid of contact. He'll lower his shoulder. He has the ability to make people miss. I just would like to see more of him because it seems like when they do get, because he never really gets any rhythm. Like he plays like so limited. It's like, dude, let him get a feel for the game. Let him lower his shoulder and run somebody over and get up and do it again, and that makes someone miss. Like, you know what I mean? As a running back, you really got to get a feel and take a few hits before you really kind of get in the groove of a game. And I feel like it started to let him do that in the second half in garbage time too, which didn't make any sense. Like, why are you doing it now? But you started to see what was happening. I mean, Swift started to kind of get some momentum, started to kind of show off a little bit. Like he was feeling pretty good. So
definitely, yeah. And like again, I'm not trying to like dunk on Swift by any means. It's just he has been inconsistent this year, primarily due to that ankle injury. And those again, I just think with where their offense is at, you're going to prefer the consistent stuff over the less reliable stuff. Now, one last thing that I want to talk about with this is the Lions have 2 absolutely massive games ahead of them. They're currently the favorite for the Vikings, which is awesome that a 5-7 team is the favorite to win against a 10-win team. But we will see how this pans out because just based off of the way that the NFC is shaking out, I do think you essentially need to win out to make the playoffs. You can probably afford yourself 1 loss to have a shot as a 9-win team, but I think you're going to need to be a 10-win team to for sure make it. Which means that
there's
no room
tie.
for error.
The Giants and Washington tying screwed us so bad. We just needed one of them to win, and of course, those two bot teams could figure out a way to get a win. It's just unbelievable. I also think that it's crazy that we still have ties in the NFL. Like, how can you not find a way to just crown a winner? Like, just let them play till someone wins. Someone's going to win the game eventually.
Yeah, I mean, and it's got to be frustrating as a fan to sit through 70 minutes of football.
Dude, I bet you the players are the same way.
Oh, totally.
A tie would bother me more than a loss.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's like, dude, just like either let me be happy or heartbroken. Like, I don't want to have this uneasy, like, well, what do I do? Right. No one wants that. As a competitor, no one wants that. And no fan wants that. No one watching the game wants that. Very dumb. Can't believe the NFL still has that as, ties are even still a thing. That's crazy. But yeah, it screws the Lions big time.
Well, so ahead of the Commanders, they have a bye week and the Giants again. So,
Yeah, it's so
but
stupid.
didn't I say? Wait, hold on. I remember when we were talking about this because we came to that revelation a couple weeks ago that they should just play 8 quarters of football and then
Yeah,
it should count as 2 wins. And with this tie, that's basically what they're doing.
they should
Except,
double down. They should make a
yes,
between the two teams. They should say, listen, we'll play you again, and whoever wins gets 2 wins instead of one. Deal or no
right.
deal? Because that essentially guarantees one team's out of the playoffs, and it helps the Lions greatly. But
Well,
of
and so
course,
that's where I'm going with this is they have this rematch against the Giants, and then the Commanders have the 49ers, the Browns, and the Cowboys, right? I'm thinking, if we're lucky, they take an L to the Giants, they take an L to the Commanders. It's probably a toss, or sorry, the 49ers. It's probably a toss up if they win against the Browns or not. And then it's probably an L to the Cowboys, right? So they have a tough schedule ahead of them, which again, if the Lions win out and the Commanders fail to win, at least 3 out of those next 4 games, the Lions have a legitimate shot. So that's probably our best opportunity to make something happen there. I guess we'll see.
yeah, I don't know. It scares me, right? Like the 49ers losing Jimmy G. It's different. In the NFL, you just never know who's going to win, too. I wouldn't bank on I don't like having to hope other teams lose, you know? I like being able to control your own destiny, except the Lions started so bad this season that that's the situation they're in, right? You
Right.
got to make the most
It's
of
going to
it.
have to be a combination
You
of
got
both
to I think you
teams
got to
losing and you winning out. So,
yeah,
you
that
know,
sucks. But it is what it is. Hey, you have an opportunity, you have life, you have a chance. And that as a Lions fan, you can't really say every year, right? And we would not have
absolutely.
said this a few weeks ago. So,
No, December football matters for the first time for a Lions team in what, 5, 6 years? So
yeah.
that's exciting. All right. Moving on to Browns Texans. Unfortunately, the football gods were not on our side. And karma apparently did not pull that out, except Watson played horribly.
Horribly.
He looked horrible.
Sure as hell wasn't because of him that they won the game.
No, there was the Browns defense having
Special teams.
the special teams having, massive turnovers that completely swung the momentum of this game. So, what Watson threw a red zone pick, didn't he?
He didn't look good. He didn't look comfortable. And again, did people expect him to come out of a suspension where he's been sitting on his ass, doing nothing, not practicing with the team for the entire season, like, and just come out and be
And
good?
he sat
I
last
mean,
year
this is
out
the
too,
yeah, this is the
right?
NFL. Like you don't miss that much time and just jump in there with guys that you haven't been practicing with. Like that, I don't care how good you are. I mean, you couldn't just take Patrick Mahomes and sit him for 8 games with a new team and then just expect him to be good for the Detroit Lions. That doesn't happen. I don't care how good or talented somebody
Right.
is. Like it requires chemistry and timing and all of that stuff. And so the fact that they even started him right away kind of was weird to me. I don't know. I think I would almost have maybe played, Brissett. I don't know. I mean, I get that
I
Watson's
mean,
much
I
more
don't think the
talented.
Browns are playing to make the playoffs this season. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they will happily, make the playoffs if they can. But I think that this entire season was just whatever. We're going to toss up and let Watson come into the fray when he's ready. I think that was
Yeah.
totally their mentality. Just crazy because time is very valuable if you're an NFL team, especially with jobs on the line and things like that. And winning is very valuable, but I do genuinely think that was their mentality going into this season. So
Yeah.
whatever. I guess we'll see how it progresses. And the literal only time you will catch me rooting for them for the rest of the season is when they play the Commanders later here. So Jets Vikings, that was a crazy game. I texted Mark. Jets put together a beautiful drive to try to win the game. Fall short, give the ball back to Minnesota, are able to stop them in a 3-and-out, get the ball back, and then fall short again. I think they ran out of time. No. Was it
Fourth down.
it
Yeah,
was
they
fourth down. Okay.
threw a pick in the end zone. But
Yeah,
listen,
that's
man,
right.
the Jets fought, right? Give credit to Minnesota for hanging on, right? Their defense being able to make a couple stands at the end of the game. That great teams have defenses that can do that, right? They did it against Buffalo in that close game, and they did it against the Jets here this week. But Conklin had a good game. Our guest from last week. There was a lot of cool stuff of him, talking to former fans that he spent a lot of time there. It was cool to see him kind of go back and have an exciting game like this. Obviously, I know he wanted to get the win, and that didn't happen. But a lot of cool stuff in that game, and the Vikings kind of embraced him. It seemed like really, really well. The fans, but not only the fans, but like their social media posted about him. The NFL posted about him. It
Totally.
was pretty cool to see. Um, but yeah, man, the Vikings. This is a big win for them. I mean, the Jets are. All this tells me is the Jets are a really, really good team that lost. That just weren't the better team that day. But they lost to a team that's 10-2 and has looked really good and has won against some really good teams. Um, it does. I don't think if you're a Jets a fan, you hang your head here. I think that this is something to actually be proud of, that they went into against a tough team and played like that, right? And
Absolutely.
they threw the ball well. They had some, they were fighting from behind essentially the whole game. And they have no quit, man. That Jets team has no quit, and that's a dangerous team. Team that won't give up is a scary team to play against.
Definitely. It is really interesting to me how inconsistent Minnesota's defense is, where I feel like first half of games, they get pushed around quite a lot. And then second half, I don't know what it is, whether it be your halftime adjustments or just whatever, they find something in themselves against these critical games with Buffalo and against the Jets here. And, even that Lions game near the beginning of the season, right? The Lions were able to put up a ton of points on them in the first half and then completely stalled out against this defense in the second half. So,
Yeah.
Curious what the implications are there for the Lions next week, right? Are they able to, figure out how to keep that momentum going in the second half? It's going to be a huge game.
It'll be a close game because all the Vikings games have been close, and
Oh
that
yeah,
in a weird way that prepares you for the playoffs. I mean, they've literally been in close games every single week. No matter
totally.
who they play. Listen, most playoff games are going to be close. So those teams know how to win, and whether it's defense or offense on the field, they have found ways to win.
Absolutely. Commanders Giants, kind of a nothing burger of the game, considering it was a tie. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that, but like I said, they should just make the next matchup 2 weeks from now count for two. That's kind of where I'm at with
I'm
things.
with you. I'm in full support of that. I wish that could actually happen. And this sucks, man. It just sucks. I mean, like you play all that you go through an entire week of preparation. I mean, people got to understand the amount of time and commitment that these coaches and players put in to play one game, and to come out of it and have a tie is so stupid.
So
And
annoying.
it's so preventable. I mean, there's so many different options that they could have to shorten the game. I mean, I think the only reason they have this is because to keep the players safe. They don't want them playing a game that goes too long. But just do like a college overtime then, or just there's so many different
Right.
options that they
Or if it
have.
makes it to double overtime, a field goal wins it. Like I'd be even fine
Yeah,
with
I don't.
that.
Yeah, it
Like I
doesn't.
don't. It
Whatever.
doesn't
Like
matter.
you got to give somebody, a win and somebody a loss. Um, but yeah, it's dumb. I can't believe it's still a thing.
Right. Uh, Titans Eagles. Mark, are you drinking the Eagles Kool-Aid yet? Because like
Listen, I
Vrabel teams do not get blown out. That's just
I
like
I totally regretted this Tennessee pick. Like I looked back and was like, wait, why did? Because I went and made a TikTok and posted on our social media. And I talked about revenge games. Right, there was several revenge matchups throughout the week here. AJ Brown playing against his former team. Was I stupid or did I not think of it? When you have a player, a superstar player, in a revenge game against a team that just chose to not pay him and traded him when he probably had earned that money? What do
yeah,
you think he's going to do? I should have known better than that, and I
right.
totally regret that decision. Um, but yeah, I mean, when that's one thing if you're a gambling man in the NFL, when former players play against their old team and karma, we've talked about football karma is real. The Titans were cheap and chose not to pay AJ Brown. He had definitely earned that money. He went to Philly. In this game, did you really think he wasn't going to go and try to make a statement?
Yeah,
You
and
know what I mean?
the Titans, off the heels of this game, fired their GM this morning. So really interesting development there. From what I understand, him and Vrabel did not get along very well, and Vrabel did not agree with trading Brown away. So curious to see what comes of that. And with how
That's got to
good.
feel good for AJ Brown. That's got to feel
Yeah, and
really good.
and with how good and consistent of a coach Vrabel has been for this Titans team, are they going to get a GM that is a lot more aggressive, not only in signing talent like AJ Brown, but trading for talent like AJ Brown, and maybe trading up in draft picks to get certain players. I'm curious to see what happens because Vrabel's always been like, oh, I work with what I got kind of guy, and has always been successful doing that, like year over year, which is crazy. Like, I mean, Ryan Tannehill's their quarterback, for God's sake. and they're able to make it work. So, yeah, interested to see what happens for the Titans there in the future. If this is a massive step up for them, keeping Vrabel at the helm and getting a new GM in there with him that maybe meshes better or whatever. So interesting. And look, Eagles look great. They look so good. I mean, besides that Washington loss, they have just done nothing but put the gas pedal on basically every single team they've played. So I think the sky's the limit for them this season. I truly do.
They have what it takes to definitely win the NFC. I don't know if they have the ability to compete with those AFC teams yet, though. But maybe we'll see in the Super Bowl. I'm not sure.
Yep, and that's the best part is you don't got a game plan for any of those AFC teams unless you make it all the way. So
yeah,
I'm sure they're feeling pretty good, especially with kind of how the NFC is shaken out so far this season. Seahawks, Rams, right? I mean, honestly, I'm impressed that the Rams played as well as they did in this game, missing all the talent that they're missing. They're actually able to kind of put something together.
They should have won the game, John. I mean, it was a last second score from Geno Smith to Metcalf. So,
and I just gotta quickly pull this up while we're chatting here. Of Jalen Ramsey actually has allowed the most pass TDs as a primary defender this season. And look, everybody in the NFL, you got to have confidence. You got to have an ego, especially corners. I think you kind of need to have confidence as an ego and an ego. Tyler talked about that in our episode last week. But there's a point where you're being realistic with having that ego, and there's a point where you're just acting like a jackass and talking shit to players that are literally making fun of you. DK Metcalf was literally bullying Ramsey by the end of this game because he was just running all over him the entire game. So,
yeah, I mean, if you're going to have that ego, you have to back it up, obviously, and that requires consistent effort and work and focus and preparation. And it seems to me, obviously, the Super Bowl hangover, and it just he just kind of seems, I think, that he's a little bit out of it, right? I mean, bar none, probably the most talented defensive back in the NFL. And when he's fully bought in and he's fully focused, not many people can score on him, but you can tell there's a lack of focus and a lack of care right now because the team's not as good. And, there's guys hurt around him. And he's just, I think he's kind of lost his effort, right? And
yeah, he's just coasting. Absolutely.
He's coasting. But, if you're going to talk, you better back it up because when you talk and you don't back it up, people like me and John talk about how bad you are and show that you're giving up the most touchdowns. And teams are targeting you. And did you see he had 72 targets as well? The fact that people are even looking to throw at him is embarrassing, right?
Right. You want to avoid the good corners.
You should be less
the
targeted if you're Jalen Ramsey, Mr. Lockdown, no matter what. Right. There's been years where that dude is not targeted very much, right? Where he just takes your best receiver out of the game completely. He's done that to DeAndre Hopkins before. There's been games where he literally takes that guy out of a game. And that Jalen Ramsey, we're not seeing this year. And if you want to talk, we're going to expose you, right? But when you're good, we're also going to give you the praise. But right now, he sucks. We've said it a few episodes in a row. Good to see the Rams lose. Let's get that pick higher for Detroit.
Yeah. And that's the thing I'm so excited about is that Detroit's going to have another crazy draft capital situation going into this draft, and they're already a pretty damn good team. It's scary,
there's to me, this is way too early draft analysis, okay? But to me, Lions have two options.
Will Anderson, Jalen Carter.
No, Will Anderson or trade your pick.
Interesting.
And Will Anderson, I think, is we're talking generational player, okay? I mean, he changes your team. He makes Aiden Hutchinson look like a JV football player. Okay, Will Anderson's a freak. All right, he will change him and Hutchinson on the same team.
Would be terrifying.
Unbelievable. Okay, so if you get Will Anderson, if you can get him, because it's going to be shaky to see if the teams ahead of us draft quarterbacks, right? Because I think you either have to have the second pick or two teams have to take quarterbacks. Because there's only one team ahead of us right now. I think is taking a quarterback for sure. Mm-hmm. If you can't get Will Anderson, I think that you trade your pick and you get more value and get more picks in the first round, similar to how we did, where we had 2 picks last year in the first round. I think that we did really well with that. And I think there's a lot of talent that you can get at positions we need in the, 20 to 32 range. We don't necessarily need that top 10. We don't need another defensive lineman if it's not a generational player. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think that those are the two options. I know it's way too early, and I'm just talking about it because it's exciting. But yeah, Will Anderson or trade your pick and get more value, get more draft capital, and then you have, you can spread out who you want to get position wise better.
And it didn't make conversation for this podcast, but there was a stat just showing that Holmes is just absolutely knocking it out of the park with his rookies. So, however he wants to play this draft, I'm all for it. I trust the dude. Absolutely.
And that just goes to show too how much I'm starting to believe in Goff. The fact that we might have a top 3 pick, and I'm saying don't take a quarterback, and there's some
No,
good quarterbacks.
no.
I believe
Seriously,
in
I
Goff.
would wait till next year and go for a guy like Williams if you guys don't think that Goff is the guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. Because look, he definitely is not one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but he's
He's playing like it.
putting up crazy numbers week over week over week. And look, to me, it's don't fix what isn't broken. There's obvious problem areas on this Lions team, and I don't think quarterback is an obvious problem area. Dolphins, 49ers. This was a weird one. And I got really disheartened seeing Jimmy G break his foot. There is speculation he might not be out for the season, which is massive for the 49ers if that's the case. But the fact that they're playing this really good Dolphins team, right? You have, kind of a revenge game in of itself. Not really, but, like student challenging the master. And this 49ers defense and even the offense with Purdy at the helm just crushed it. And it was so fun to watch. And hats off to Shanahan, man. Like he's an incredible coach. And the 49ers are just so fun to watch because of it.
Listen, you give McDaniel credit, right, for everything he's done this year. But like
Absolutely.
we said, when we made this pick, does Nick Saban lose a lot to his former coaches that were underneath him? You know what I mean? Like McDaniel learned a lot from Shanahan, and there's a reason that Shanahan has been in his established head coaching position for much longer, right? He's got more experience. He taught McDaniel a lot of the stuff that he knows. He definitely, I think, was able to help out in game planning defensively a little bit this week and say, this is what I think this guy's going to try to do. I know I know how he thinks, right?
He's like, how would I defeat myself
if
I was playing in a game?
Right. Like, so I think, especially with losing Jimmy G and like the ability to win this game. I don't know what your thought is here, John. I'm curious to see what you say. I think that the best defense in the NFL are the 49ers.
I don't know how you could disagree with that. I mean, you just look at how they've handled, teams not only in their division, but, pretty much everywhere. I mean, shut out the Saints, beat the Dolphins, who have a pretty explosive offense. They're able to keep a lot of good teams very tame, and then the offense does just enough to get them the win. I mean,
yeah, it's a good football formula to be successful. Obviously you could mention the Dallas defense and the Denver defense, and there's some other defenses for sure that you could talk about. But yeah, I think it's hard to argue that the 49ers are right there, and they're probably the top defense in the league. Big win. But yeah, without Jimmy G moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now. It sucks because I feel like it was Super Bowl or bust for them, and now it's
and now it's like they could potentially struggle to make the playoffs at this point.
I know,
which is just crazy.
It sucks.
It really does, and I just really like watching the 49ers play football. Like they're just one of those teams where it's like every single time they're on the TV, I kind of get stoked about it. So yeah, I'm always just kind of like, pull for them in one way or another. And it's a bummer to see that happen. But at the same time, if we know anything about, Shanahan and the way that he manages his offense, all you need is a guy to do their job at quarterback. You don't need a playmaker. You don't need an all-star. You just need a dude to plug in and make the right reads and make the right decisions. That's why Jimmy G worked there. And we'll see what happens if, I think Purdy's going to be their guy. People are saying they're going to swing on Baker Mayfield to get a guy in there. No way, right? So. They care way more about what you're doing mentally at the quarterback position there than they care about you as an athlete. And Purdy's been there since he got drafted. Obviously, he understands the offense.
He's ready. He stepped up to his opportunity, man. Like that's all you can ask for as a guy who's kind of back on the depth chart. Like, I've been in that position. I know how that feels. Like when you get your opportunity, you get a chance. Like he you give credit to guys that when they get their call, they make the most of it. And
Yep.
he's gonna have an opportunity to lead this team for the near future here and try to get them to the playoffs and see what they can do because the roster around him is loaded. The standard
Yep.
is high in San Francisco, man.
And shout out to him being Mr. Irrelevant too, and
Mm-hmm.
making that happen. Right? I mean, here at the Practice Squad podcast, we love a good underdog story. So
Yes, we do.
shout out Purdy. Chiefs, Bengals. Mark, you predicted it, right? And I got to give you credit for knowing exactly how this was going to shake out. Basically, that the Bengals just this time in the season last year, they just started going on a tear, and nobody wanted to play them. And sure enough, they did exactly that to KC. What are your thoughts on this game? I thought KC played incredibly well. They just didn't have enough to get it done, and Burrow's still missing like a couple pieces, like Mixon and stuff like that. So crazy.
First thing to point out: Joe Burrow 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes.
Okay? Can't say that very often.
We're talking about a quarterback that we just said, and we just talked 2 weeks ago. Said this dude hasn't lost in November and December in 36 games.
Okay? Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. This was the first one. He's 36-1 now. Joe Burrow's 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes in his 3 appearances against him in the NFL. He has had a much worse roster in pretty much all 3 of those games. So, I mean, think about the first couple times Mahomes, that's Tyreek Hill, those teams, still was able to beat him. We've seen Burrow come back from behind in the playoffs last year and beat him. We've seen him now at home in Cincinnati win the way they won this time. He was just a better player, man. He just seemed more prepared. And I kind of called it a little bit in how Cincinnati was going to play against Mahomes, right? Similar to how they played him last year. They dropped kind of everyone back. They were able to kind of do different blitz packages with less guys, and they forced Mahomes to hold the ball, and they just basically contain him, and they don't let him get loose. And he will eventually, make errant throws and try to run the ball, and he gets frustrated, right? He gets bottled up. He wants to be an explosive offense. And when you limit the explosion, he gets frustrated and he starts to do things that he doesn't normally do. It becomes uncharacteristic. So Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, that never happens, right? You heard him in his press conference after. If I hand the ball off 72 times and we win, I'm good. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to win by slinging the thing around and getting all these fancy plays in, and Andy Reid doing all his, the stuff that they work on all week in practice and everybody loves to see. Sometimes when you take that away, it frustrates the other team, and that's exactly what Cincinnati did. Give them their credit. Expect them to continue to go on a winning streak here. And like we said, Bills, Kansas City, favorites in AFC, put the Bengals right there in that conversation as that third team in the AFC that I think could probably be a Super Bowl team. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've only gotten better since last year, and last year they made the Super Bowl, and they know how to beat good teams, and definitely not a team that you want to see in the playoffs whatsoever. And I think you're right. I think that Joe Burrow is the calmest, collected quarterback. Joe Cool's his nickname for a reason. Like
the comparisons to him. I've said this before so many times. The comparisons to him and Tom Brady are unbelievable. I'm telling you, the way they carry themselves, the way they walk, the way that they talk, the way they move in the pocket and make the throws that they make, the way they talk to their teammates, the way they lead, like it is scary. Early on, Tom Brady and early on Joe Burrow are very scary similar. And there was a lot of draft comparisons to that when he was coming out of LSU. People were like, dude, you're comparing him to the best ever. It's like, yeah, well, he reminds me a lot of the best ever. We're interviewing him in these draft process. Like he is really similar to what we think Tom Brady was like at that time.
Right.
And he's starting to show it. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with his career, but he's off to quite the hot start. And for a Cincinnati team, again, that 3 years ago before he got in the league was dead. I mean, they were horrible for a long time, So
yeah, and they were not a good team his rookie year there, and still was able to make some shit happen before he tore his ACL. So it's
what
crazy.
I'm saying.
Yeah. He definitely is the leadership that organization needed, and I'm sure he's going to be their quarterback for a very, very long time into the future. Raiders and Chargers. This is an interesting one because I just think the Raiders offense is finally clicking. Is it too late, right? an AFC 5-7 is very different from an NFC 5-7. The Lions, it's a real big long shot for them to make the playoffs, but they can. I don't know if that window is even remotely open for the Raiders. I think it might mathematically not be in a week or two. But regardless, big win. Carr and Adams are clearly clicking these past few weeks at a level they haven't been prior to that. So it's
We're so
definitely
quick to
proud of
judge,
them.
John. We're so quick to judge teams that have new coaches and new players. And because the expectation in the NFL is to win right now. And especially when you have a good coach and when you have superstar players like they have. But the Raiders, we've said all year long, have they're just been so close, and they've blown some leads and they've had some tough losses. But this is a very good, talented football team on both sides of the ball. They have the pieces that they need, and a few more games go their way, and they're right there winning, playoff games. Unfortunately, it didn't happen early on, and unfortunately for them, the AFC is much better than the NFC, and they're not like the Lions where they can kind of turn shit on when they need to and still have a chance. But this is an impressive win, and for the Chargers, man, it's like I'm just waiting, like this talented roster and Herbert and all the stuff that they have, and I'm just like I'm waiting for them to come alive. And this one is very disheartening, and it
Yeah.
makes their playoff odds tough. They're not dead either, but it makes it really tough. I mean, they're going to have to beat Kansas City. Um, you're going to have to hope the Raiders beat Kansas City even have a chance.
Yeah. And
And it's a
unfortunately,
spec.
like this is the Chargers year after year after year. And like everybody was even checking themselves on this narrative going into the season. They're like, man, Chargers really look like they could be a team to do it. They got the talent for it. Their coach is pretty good. But I don't know, because every single year we say something like this about the Chargers and they just fail to meet expectations. And this is another one of those years. And, there's always the excuses that you can bring up to kind of demonstrate how the odds are against them, but none of that matters at the end of the day. What matters is you make the playoffs and you win games, right? So it stinks. I'm disappointed. I love Herbert. I love a lot of the guys on that team. I think they're super fun to watch, but like you said, it's just disappointing. It's a bummer. Colts and Cowboys. The
50 burger.
The score is slightly misleading because the Colts hung in there until the fourth quarter, and then the Cowboys just put them to bed.
That was an
Just
absolute
30-0.
That was an absolute fall apart if I've ever seen one. I mean,
yeah.
It was literally like every other play
Folded on
was
themselves.
a turnover for a touchdown. it was like I was watching, like elementary school
Madden
football when the quarterback in sixth grade is like a grown man, he hit puberty early, and something happens to him and he has to leave the game, and then you put in like your little like backup quarterback who has no idea what he's doing. That's what it felt like happened, except the Colts still had Matt Ryan in, and they just
the fall off with Matt Ryan. Like that dude has never been great, but he's always been reliable and good. He has the worst turnovers out of any quarterback in the league right now, and the Colts have the most turnovers out of any team in the league right now. I mean, they cannot hang on to the ball to save their lives. It is crazy to me.
You got to remember, John, Matt Ryan won an MVP. I mean, he
played in a Super Bowl.
Played in a Super Bowl, had a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl against a very good team. Like this guy is a very good quarterback, in his prime, and he's still very capable of doing that. He has not shown that even in the slightest bit this entire season, and
he stinks.
I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, Jeff Saturday is not looking as good as we first thought with his hire. I don't think you can really blame him completely for this one. It just looked like the offense just completely fell apart, shot themselves in the foot. And Dallas is the type of defense that's going to seize that opportunity when they see it. When they smell blood in the water, they're going to go after it. I don't know if you saw the Odell Beckham Jr. recruiting visit to the NBA game with Micah Parsons, and it's almost annoying.
I did see that.
They're treating it like he's some 5-star recruit. Like this isn't college, dude.
It's annoying.
These teams don't need you. Dallas doesn't need you to be could you help them? Sure.
I think he got a whiff of this attention last year, and he realized that he freaking loves it. And if he could injure himself in the Super Bowl and come back mid-season to like save an already really good team, year over year over year for the rest of his career, that's exactly what he would do because he loves this attention. He loves all of this shit, how he's getting treated like royalty by 4 or 5 different NFL teams on these visits. It's nuts. It's silly. Like it's
weird. I've never seen anything like this before. Like it's
No.
weird. Like
it's Odell Beckham out of his prime. That's the thing. Like this isn't Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson in their primes. This is Odell Beckham a few years removed from him being a super dominant receiver. He's still very good.
Coming off of a serious knee injury, you know, and who knows exactly what he's going to be coming off of this. But yeah, it just is weird, man. It's just weird, and it's like the way that he's going about it bothers me. The way that if I'm a team, I would call him and say, listen, yeah, we can bring you in here. Here's what we'll pay you. But we're not gonna, get on our knees and beg you to come here. Like we're winning games. Like you obviously want to come to a team that's already going to be a contender. You're not going to go to a team that's not contending.
That's the thing. Like
he's literally only talking to 3 teams that are already saving. Good.
He's not saving anybody. That's the part that's frustrating.
He's hopping on what's good. He's just hopping on the bandwagon. That's what everybody wants to do nowadays too. Then no one wants to start from the bottom and earn it like Joe Burrow did in Cincinnati. No one wants to do that. Everyone just kind of wants to join what's smooth, right? And that's what he's taking the easy way out. I don't know. It bothers me. And
it does. I mean,
the unfortunate thing is
I
think he will go. I think he will go to one of these teams and he will be a star. And
because he will be, yeah, and
he'll go in and he'll get single coverage, because CeeDee Lamb will be on the other side, and Dak will get him the ball, and he'll be going against the other team's second best defender, and you put a number 2 guy on Odell, he's gonna embarrass him. Like he's good enough to do that. It bothers me, but he's probably gonna do exactly what everyone thinks he's gonna do is go there and make a difference.
If you can pay Odell on a 1-year contract or whatever they're gonna pay him, like why couldn't you keep Amari Cooper? Who's a lot younger in his career and still has a lot of talent and stuff like that. I don't know. It's confusing and weird. But it's I think what happens when you get very wealthy, egotistical athletes.
I think they just didn't want to give. I think they just didn't want to give Amari a long-term thing.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you can get a 1-year guy like that and on a team that is already a Super Bowl contender in most people's eyes, yeah. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
I hope they lose in the first round of the playoffs still, because that's just on brand for them.
Hey, maybe they can figure out how to spike the ball.
Yeah, right. And then I might cry, like I might actually shed tears talking about this next game. But Saints Bucks, like. So first of all, and I forgot this, no Lattimore. He's been hurt for the past couple of weeks. I don't know why he thought he was healthy and back and playing.
I didn't catch that either. I assumed there was going to be a fight for sure.
So we avoided a bench clearing fight. Tom Brady still threw an iPad in frustration. Like this game, up until the last 5 minutes, was going exactly how I'd expect this game to go. Low scoring. Saints defense is just absolutely having their way with Tampa, embarrassing them, frustrating them, playing lights out. I was so cocky. I'm messaging Mark. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted to see. Thank God we're going to beat Tampa here. We're going to have the same record, and we might actually somehow win the NFC South. It's great. Because, by the way, Saints playoff hopes this season now are officially dead, as if they weren't already as a 4-8 team. Somehow the NFC South is so bad that's exactly the case. Then everything fell apart in the last 5 minutes. Make horrible decision. Talk about bad coaching, right? Decisions Sean Payton wouldn't have made. Whatever Dennis Allen was doing in that last drive with the, Ingram not getting the first and then them throwing it on 3rd down and then them punting it. What the hell are you doing? What are you doing? You need to get a first down to run out the clock and win the freaking game. Like
Ingram went out of bounds like almost intentionally.
Yeah,
that was the weirdest thing ever to me, and it made no sense.
I screamed at the TV, "What are you doing?"
It's not like he didn't see where it was. I mean, the marker was right in front of him, and there was no threat for someone to tackle.
And we're throwing it on 3rd and 1 when you've been crushing it, running the ball, and getting short yardage the entire game. I mean, and for the first time this season, Olave apparently had stone hands. I mean, he had so many balls thrown his way that were actually good passes by Dalton that he dropped that would have been touchdowns. Same thing with Landry. Landry had one that was right here And all he needed to do was catch it and walk into the
there's a
end zone for a
couple
touchdown.
horrible drops. Horrible drops.
So I do have to
Saints
show
receivers.
Mark and I's text conversation. So that was just encapsulating my feelings.
That was during the last. That was so. This let's just go through the timeline of these text messages in the game, right, and kind of recap the ending. So the entire game, and what you can't see are the texts of John saying, "Oh,
Saints look great."
LFG, Tom Brady just threw another iPad on cue. Andy Dalton actually looks pretty good. Here we go. Defense looks great. And then all of a sudden you get that little nervous, right? It starts to fall apart on offense. The Bucs go down and score to make it a 1-possession game.
Tom Brady has a minute and 35 seconds or whatever he had going into this last drive.
So then this text gets sent right as the Saints get the ball back and they go 3 and out, right? So this text gets sent. When the Bucs get the ball back, before I even respond, they're already moving into the red zone. They get to like the 10, 15-yard line. I send just dots because we've seen this song and dance before. Tom Brady he's going to rip out your heart. And within probably, I don't know, a minute of me sending the text of the 3 dots, that's the response I get from John because the touchdown happened like literally within that minute of me sending that text. So
yeah, and Hannah, my longtime girlfriend, who is a great sport about how much of a football fan I am, but she's not a huge football fan herself. She got to watch me like be all excited over this game, going nuts, having a great time. I just literally just slammed my computer shut, tossed it on the floor, and went to bed as soon as this game was over. I was so pissed. So yeah. Anyways, thanks Saints for I don't know. Making me really sad. Yeah, just ruining my night basically. So that's the week. Time to move on to our picks for next week. A lot of exciting matchups. Raiders Rams to start. Look, I think the Raiders are going to win this one. And I hope they honestly keep that momentum going the rest of the season, just because good on them for finding a pulse late in the season here. So,
yep, and rooting for the Raiders.
Rams got to lose so that maybe we can get, I don't know, a 2nd-round pick. We'll see what happens.
I need Will Anderson, dude. I feel like we're right there, and I want him. I want him in Detroit, and we're so close to getting him. And if we do, I'm telling you, it's going to be special in Detroit next year if we were able to get Will Anderson. So I'm going to pick the Raiders.
We'd take a corner after that too. I know we're speculating way too early, but man, I'm getting so stoked on it.
It's exciting because
wait for April.
Exciting because we've seen the Lions actually take some huge steps, and whether or not they make the playoffs or not is regardless of the fact that the future is bright and they've drafted well and they're about to get some high quality picks, and I trust that they're going to do the right thing. So it's exciting. But I'm going to pick the Raiders partially because I want them to win so bad, but also I do think that they're the better team with the banged up Rams.
Jets Bills. This is a huge game for the Jets, but I think Bills are going to win it.
I do too. The Jets already beat the Bills once. I don't think that's going to happen twice. Although I do think they'll give them one hell of a fight.
Browns Bengals. I'm going to go Bengals here, no doubt.
I'm also going to go Bengals. The Bengals they're ready to rattle off some wins. I said it last week. It kind of just feels like the same thing's happening. I know I already said this last week, but it just feels like it's happening all over again.
Texans Cowboys. I think this is a pretty easy pick. My question is, who do Texans take first overall?
I think they take a quarterback.
I think so too, but which one?
I think it's going to be hard to argue that it's not Bryce Young.
I'd agree with you personally. There's a lot of debate on that, but I think he's the better quarterback between the two. I guess we'll see.
I think he's the most NFL ready, like mentally.
As most Bama quarterbacks tend to be.
He is similar to Burrow in the fact of how he is mentally, like cool, calm, and collected. Like Bryce Young does not get phased. He's undersized. He doesn't have the arm talent necessarily that like Stroud has. But I just like if you study this guy's game and you watch him on film and you talk to his coaches, like he's ready to be able to kind of go into a bad situation and make the most of it. So I think it's Bryce
Young. Vikings, Lions. Look, the Lions are the favorite. Must-win game at home. I'm all hyped up. I'm going Lions.
Yeah, the Lions being favored in this game is pretty crazy to me. But I get it. I mean, they've looked really, really good, and it's a home game, and Detroit's a tough place to go and play right now. I'm gonna pick Minnesota just because again, I just feel like it's a tough matchup in the secondary for the Lions to compete with those receivers. But I could very easily see the Lions do what they did the first time around, run the ball really well and finish drives. And if they're able to do that even a little bit in the second half in the first game, they win. Right. So
And worth noting too that Okuda and Jacobs are healthy, and which last game they really started to let up big plays on defense when the secondary started going down. Right.
this game just means more. You know what? I'm changing my pick.
Let's go. Drink that Kool-Aid. Drink that Kool-Aid, Mark.
This game means more to Detroit. It's in Detroit. They almost beat the Vikings the first time around. They've looked. I mean, they almost beat the Bills as well. Like I don't know. I'm a Lions hater. This is crazy that I'm doing this. I don't think I picked the Lions one time all year. Honest to God, I don't think I have. We can always fact check that, but I don't think I have. I'm picking the Lions. I hope I don't curse them, but I'm picking the Lions.
We will see. That might be the ultimate good karma they need to win what's probably going to be a very close game. Eagles Giants. I think Eagles get it done, and I think they need to get it done. I think Cowboys and Eagles need to beat up on their other two divisional opponents for the rest of the season for us to have the best shot. So let's hope that that's the case. So Eagles for me.
I'm also going Eagles. There's no way. The Giants, I mean, again, I know their record's good and all. I still, I mean, we said it back in the early beginning of this. I don't think the Giants are that good. I really don't, and I know that they started off hot and all, but they've kind of shown their true colors in recent weeks. I think that they're an average football team.
Yep, I agree.
Eagles.
And look, promising start with a rookie head coach. So good luck to you, Giants. But yeah, you're mid. And that's kind of what we were always thinking here at this podcast. Ravens at Steelers. I think I'm going to go Steelers here.
I'm also going to go Steelers, John.
Yeah, without Lamar and at Pittsburgh, I think the Steelers got this one.
This is the type of game plan that Tomlin just like, hey, they're going to try to quarterback run. They're going to try to do this and that. It's a backup quarterback. They're going to be prepared defensively for that. And I think you're going to see a low scoring, horrible football game, but I think the Steelers will win.
You know what I forgot to do? Is our social media ticker? Go give us a follow.
John,
put that at the beginning of the.
What reminded you of that? Like you just I don't know because I didn't notice that. And I never noticed that until
until I engage it. Yeah. So for those that don't know, I'm pretty ADD. I'm sure you can tell just by listening to me on this podcast. And I got distracted by all the fun little icons that I used to control the stream. And then I saw the banners one, and then I got reminded. So that's how I realized that. But yeah, there's our ticker. Pretty cool. I put a lot of work into it, like 8 months ago when I put our social media on it. So you should go follow us. I'm really good at plugging the podcast. Like I'm a brand ambassador for this podcast, no doubt.
You're an idiot is what you are.
Yeah. Jags Titans. I'm going to go Titans here.
This game kind of sucks, dude. I don't know. These two teams are coming off of losses. I'm going to go Titans. But I don't know. This game just bores me. Like there's nothing about that game that excites me.
Right.
And it's not often that I can say that about an NFL game.
Yeah. I mean, Titans are pretty much playing for a wild card spot, and the Jaguars got nothing to play with play for at this point. So I'm sure it won't be all that exciting. Somehow we just got out of the 1:00 games. That's wild. Chiefs Broncos. Finally, one where I know that Mark isn't going to pick Denver unless he's just a complete idiot. So,
or am I? No, I'm picking Kansas City to assault them.
Cool. All right.
Because Kansas City's pissed off. Russell Wilson sucks. And
assault is on the menu.
The one team that can pick apart that Denver defense would be Kansas City. Totally. So, and also, like, this game's in Denver, right? So, you could talk about the elevation and stuff. Patrick Mahomes can probably throw the ball 95 yards in that stadium. So,
true. Panthers at Hawks. gonna go Seahawks there. I think they'll take care of business at home against a really bad Panthers team.
Yeah, Seattle's a tough team at home, and they continue to prove that they're not an average team. I mean, I just keep saying Seattle's, they're average. They're average. They're right there flirting with good. I'll say that. They're right there flirting with good.
Well,
And
they're young, right? I mean, this was supposed to be kind of like, I know Pete Carroll said it wasn't a rebuild, but this kind of was supposed to be a rebuild year for them. And instead, they're looking pretty damn good with a whole lot of draft capital going into next season.
Another coach you got to give credit to, right, for
Totally.
what he's done with what they have. Yeah, I'm gonna go Seattle. Side note, they don't have Kenneth Walker this week. I don't think. Kind of
I
a
think
big
they'll
loss,
be fine without him with that the way the offensive line's been playing. Bucks at Niners. I think Niners take care of business here, personally.
I think the Bucks do, unfortunately, John. No Jimmy G, and I feel like, it's tough, right? Because we talk about the Niners defense, and I don't think the Bucks are going to be able to do much against that. But I do think that the 49ers will also struggle against the Bucks defense.
Okay, so the Bucks defense is super beat up right now.
They are beat
their
up.
secondary's beat up. Their defensive line's not that great. And Mark, look at what the Saints defense did to the Bucks yesterday. And the Saints defense isn't what they used to be. And now you're taking this 49ers defense and putting it up against the Bucks.
I know
at
it
home
doesn't make a ton of sense, but
okay.
No, I mean
it's fine. I get it.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like the Bucks are, gonna rattle off some wins as well and become like everyone's talking about Super Bowl contenders and stuff, and Tom Brady's still alive and playing, and the divorce.
And I don't think this is gonna be his last season. I really don't.
No, hell no, it's not. Dude, you just got divorced. This dude might not stop playing.
Until his body literally gives out on him.
This divorce for football fans, selfishly, is like the best thing that's ever happened because
I've been
stop.
ready for him to retire for 3 years now, but I guess it is what it is.
Dude, he is not going anywhere anytime soon. I'll tell you that much.
Now, does he stay with the Bucks?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that he likes the Bucks. I think he likes the situation, and he has a lot of control there. You never know, but I think that he probably stays there. They have a good young roster still around him, for the most part, especially on defense.
Yeah. We'll see. Dolphins, Chargers.
Another sick uniform combination.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. And obviously Sunday night game too. I'm going to go Fins here.
I'm going to go Chargers here, actually. Even though I know they both are coming off losses, but I'm going to go Chargers.
They're both coming off losses, and I don't know. The Chargers just seem to be struggling. I mean, I think last week's Dolphins loss was, it wasn't a fluke. They've had losses, but it was, again, student challenging master. And I think Mike McDaniel's a better coach than Staley. So kind of where I'm at with it. Patriots, Cardinals.
Monday, dude, what is with these primetime games just being awful this year? We have not had many good
Thursday and Monday games have been pretty trash. Sunday night's been okay for the most part, but I'm gonna take Patriots here. I don't know any reason why the Patriots wouldn't get it done here.
I'm gonna take the Cardinals actually, just because they're coming off of a bye week, and I feel like they have more time to prepare for this Belichick team. And I just think that this Belichick, what I think is one thing to note about this Patriots team. As good of a coach as Belichick is, his stubbornness is affecting him right now because having Patricia calling the offense is clearly what's holding them back. And I mean, you saw the frustration Mac Jones had, saying we need to throw the ball and kind of attack vertically a little bit, and we need to stop doing this little dink and dunk bullshit. Because I think that he's talented enough to do it, and he's in his second year, and I think that they run the ball well enough to set that stuff up, and they don't take their shots. They don't try to attack defenses. They don't try to stretch you out at all.
Well, you don't need to convince a Detroit fan that Matt Patricia's a turd, but yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. And when asked about it, Belichick was like, "Well, it's too late in the season to do anything about it." It's like, what do you mean?
What do you talking?
You guys are 6-6,
and that's his fault for not realizing that. He should have known that in you can't.
People have been asking him for a year.
He was a defensive coach for the last however long.
Yeah, I don't get it.
You can't just jump into an offensive calling situation in the NFL and be good at it. Like that's a skill. That is not
Yeah.
just something that anyone who's coached football has.
Well,
You can
and
be a really good
Belichick
coach and
was getting asked about who's going to be OC for them this entire season, like preseason, and was just giving, like standard Belichick answers to that. And like, honestly, I think it bit them in the ass. I think
it is.
like you
It
said, his old
actively is.
football stubbornness is definitely getting in the way of the Patriots being a better team. So
It actively is negatively affecting them, and it's very much affecting Mac Jones' development. Because there's times where he looks like a legitimate, like, hey, he could be our guy for a long time, and there's times where, and I don't know how much of this is him being bad or the situation being bad, but there's times where I'm like, oh my god, bench him.
I
Put in
mean,
our boy.
Zappy showed
Zappy
a lot of
time.
promise. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm curious. I mean, look, the playoff implications are getting pretty crazy, especially on the NFC side where things aren't quite as locked in. So, just got to keep pulling for those Lions and see how things shake out. But another great week of NFL football. Excited for bowl games to get kicking in a couple weeks on the college side of things too. It's the best time of year, right? December and January football is the best football. All these crazy narratives, all the drama, playoffs, all that great stuff.
It just
So,
means more, man. It just means more, and as the year goes on, every game becomes more and more valuable. Every play becomes more and more valuable, and it's just like it's pretty cool to always see this. And we're so lucky as fans to kind of it never really lets us down. It doesn't really ever
mhm.
let us down. You're going to see competitive football for the next 2 months, and there's something special about that.
Absolutely. Until next week, everybody. Looking forward to catching you guys then. Thank you for listening.
Deuces.
Peace.